two dirty painters to multiple seven-figure business owners. I'm Redion.
And I'm Karmelo.
And we'll be giving you guys the insider secrets to take your trades business to the next level.
From crazy stories to proven strategies, get ready to supercharge your business with us.
Welcome to the Dirty Painters Podcast.
In today's episode, we wanted to brush up a little bit on SOPs, what that stands for, and why it's useful for any business. We will explain how implementing and refining our SOPs change the way we run our business for the better. Let's get right into it.
What's an SOP?
Standard operating procedures. You taught me that. So how did you come up with implementing it into our own business?
So yeah, guys, standard operating procedures or processes. Very simple. I know a lot of you don't know what SOP stands for because every time you ask me, what is an SOP? I have to explain to you. But yeah, SOP is just a routine, a habit kind of series of doing things. For example, like you do everything the same way over and over. That's what it pretty much is in simple words. And then how we implement it in our business is we had to figure out how to make everything so simple that everybody can follow and it can be dumb proof. That was it. And it's pretty much like the assembly line kind of method or like the McDonald's method. Every time you get a burger anywhere from McDonald's, it's the same, right?
Mm-hmm. Your routine operations, basically, it helps carry those out.
Exactly. And you put it in writing, and that's what we're going to do today. We're going to give you the whole blueprint of the Olympian standard operating process. Hopefully, they can help your business grow. So I want you, Karmelo, like, since you said I taught you that, it's like, what do you think we started implementing SOPs?
So I think we already mentioned that in a previous episode before, that one time where you had to go to Ann Arbor back in Michigan for a touch-up.
Oh, yeah.
So we had to clean up floors too. So you decided it was time to put an end to this stuff so we can take care of everything while we're there and have no callbacks. That was the turning point. And then the first SOP you came up with is everything gets covered. We have it all throughout here across all of our three standard operating procedure projects: interior, exterior, cabinet, refinishing. So that's a common step that we now implement to all of our projects.
Also, when you're growing and you're getting bigger in business and you're running multiple crews, it helps you delegate. It helps you keep the quality the same. Obviously, the quality is going to dip a little bit the more projects you're doing, but it ensures that everybody follows the rules. So you can eliminate the hiccups, the fuck-ups. You can eliminate people not knowing what to do. That's why when we start a new crew, we always make sure they go through this. It's not really training. It's just like kind of like a rule book. They have to go through this and they have to follow it. And then we have a zero strike policy. If they break the SOP, we terminate them because it keeps people accountable. And then that way, every crew, it's the same. They keep the same quality of work, they perform the same, and they deliver the same product. Because a lot of times we'll get customers like, oh, I want you to give me your best crew. I'm like, all my crews are the best. They're all trained the same way. We don't have any what do you call it? Like
Inconsistencies.
Yeah, we don't have like bench players. We're not gonna put bench players on your project. Everybody's gonna be a starter.
Yeah, every one of our guys is our starter. So the consistency and also efficiency, I would say, is what helps tremendously in all of our projects, and the accuracy. Because
for example, like Walt's project, we finished full remodel like the last week.
Mm-hmm. 4,000 square feet.
4,000 square feet, full remodel, full repaint. We finished in 14 days, which the customer was shocked. And then you guys can go check on our Instagram if you think I'm lying. And then that would not be possible without SOPs. It's just everybody followed the procedures. Everybody was on point. Obviously, you have to have good project management, and obviously, you have to have hardworking guys. But if we didn't have SOPs and we're just winging it and just went there like, what are we gonna do now? And these guys were sitting around and didn't know how to start or how to continue, then that project would have never been done in 14 days.
Yeah, how I like to describe SOP sometimes, it's like a well-orchestrated choreography. Everything works harmoniously, and then the end result is amazing all the time.
Exactly. So that's why I think it's very important for any business. Even if you're just starting out as a small business owner, like that's something that I wish I would have done in the beginning, because you remember, like a lot of times we would go into a project and we just wing it. I'm like, should we do the ceilings first? Should we do this first? What do you think? And then we just go at it. I think it would have been really nice if we had those SOPs from then. We would have been more efficient, made more money, and then worked less.
Less hours.
Yeah, less hours.
Because essentially at one point I was also asking you like, hey, what do you want me to do next?
I
I
know.
was at that point too, but it's also helps have it in writing so you can go over it and then it implements in your brain like, okay, this is what needs to happen next.
So yeah, good tip. Put your SOPs in writing always. That's why when the crew leaders they're like, oh, what's or when they're training a new guy because you're not gonna be always there training the guys. When they're training a new guy, be like, hey, you skipped step 47. You didn't dust the after you sand it, so they can keep guys accountable and they can also go back and reference on the guide, on the rule book, so they can train the new guys.
Yeah, and the good thing about it also, since you mentioned it as a guide, when something wrong happens, like if there's a rough area or anything, you can go back to the guide and see how you can troubleshoot it and where you went wrong and how you can fix it.
Yeah, for example, like in cabinets, we're gonna get into the
Hmm.
processes on it. A lot of times, guys would skip the degreasing part, and then if you miss one step on the SOPs, it throws the whole process off. So that was a very common. Also, it helps you track of why you're fucking up. So that was a very common way of us fucking up cabinets because we're not degreasing them properly. So we went back and like, hey guys, this is the most important step. Make sure it gets double checked, and that's how we improved our quality. It's also the SOPs will hold you accountable, and it also will be great for quality control. And then Carmelo did a really good job in putting this on writing for us. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna give you guys, make sure you take out your notebook, you take out whatever you take notes on. Don't take mental notes, write them down. This is the secret sauce of Olympian. And then we're gonna go over every single one for interiors, exteriors, and cabinet paint and refinishing.
So you're the mastermind. You come up with the ideas, but I just refine them a little bit. So which one do you want to start with off first? Exterior.
I think you should start with the cabinets.
Okay, let's start off with the most detailed one. So in all of our SOPs, the first step is always common and the most important. The image we portray to our clients is very important to us because our brand is really, really big. So step number one, show up on site early, dressed in your painter's attire. No basketball shorts, graphic tees, sneakers, tracksuits. We don't allow cigarette smoking on our projects. On your free time, you can do whatever you want. Language is not tolerated around client's house.
Let me make a little parenthesis on the attire and then the presentation of your painters. So put yourself into. I think that's very important. That's why we're gonna get right into the guy. But put yourself into the customer's house, in the customer's position. Sorry, and then you have five guys showing up to your house. One is wearing basketball shirts. One is wearing a Sean Williams shirt. One is wearing a shirt that you should be only wearing at the club. What? How do you feel? Like, do you feel like those guys? They might be great painters, but what's the first impression that you get? I think like, you should judge a book by its cover, and then people do. So, what's the first impression that you get from those guys? You'd be like, oh shit, who the fuck are these guys? That's why I think it's very important. Everybody is on brand. Everybody shows and wears the same shirts. Everybody is clean cut. You don't have like raggedy clothes. It sets the tone and it makes the customer feel comfortable. I think that's the most important because a lot of people, like for example, same project from last week, they left us in the $5 million house all by ourselves because from the moment that we stepped in foot in the house, they're like, oh shit, look at these guys. They're clean cut, on time. They all look presentable. They trusted us, so we set the tone just I think by showing up like that. So very important. Make sure all your guys, if you want to grow, if you want to be just a Joe Schmo with a truck and then just paint, then you can just go to work however you want. But if you want to grow and be a powerhouse name in your market, presentation, I think it's step number one.
Yeah. It plays a big part in your branding too. All of our guys wear green shirts, so they see those green shirts.
Green shirts, white
Yeah.
shirts, whatever. Just look professional. Go ahead. You can continue. Sorry
Yep.
for
And
the
then
parenthesis.
being respectful and well spoken is something we pride ourselves on being on. We always get
parenthesis again.
Let's go.
All right, guys. We swear. This is the podcast. We use profanity. We'll talk about random stuff.
Yeah, fuck it.
But when you're in a customer's house, you have to respect the customer. That's, I think, the most important part. you cannot be swearing. You cannot be using that kind of language because at least in our culture, it shows disrespect. Like I'm not gonna come to your house and start talking shit and smack and talking about random stuff. So I noticed that when I was working for the union, the painters, it was mostly commercial work, but they were very foul mouthed. And I mean, it's okay in a certain level, but when you all you do all day is swear and curse, it's like it's a lot of negativity, I think.
Yeah, and it becomes a habit, and you might slip every now and then. Even if the client is chill or laid
Yeah.
back and they swear themselves, we never
We're
we never do
highly
that.
trained professionals.
We don't want to join in with them.
Yeah, like you don't go in front of a judge and he starts swearing because he's cool. No, he's professional, he stays strict. That's how you should treat it. Or you don't see CEOs or like big business guys swearing. It's you have to treat it the same way. And then the guys have to follow the same patterns. Like I literally remember Nick. We had to fire a guy. He was our best painter ever. The guy was a money making machine. He was working for 6 guys, but he was very foul mouthed, and we had to terminate him because it could cause trouble. Like he said something about the cleaning lady of a house, and then I mean I get he had no ill intent, but you never know how people gonna imprint. What do you call it?
Impact,
Interpret it.
interpret it.
There we go. So yeah, very important.
And then we continue on. Something we also like to do is because our painters, they have paint on their shoes and whatnot from going to the shop or any other projects. We leave our shoes at the front door before we lay out paper throughout the house. That's a nice way of showing respect to the client's home, that we're going to protect it. We're not going to make it dirty. We're not going to bring any further dust in. And all the countertops get covered too before we place our tools
So I see
on
it.
there.
I've seen a few guys that they're trying to be like influencers and give sales tips and like
Oh, let's go.
they record themselves when they go into estimates and they have their shoes on.
Yeah.
I'm like, guys, how you gonna train me into sales and you go into a customer's house with like nice carpet and stuff and you have your sneakers on? I'm like it makes no sense. Again, going back to the cultural thing and then respect to the somebody else's property. Take your shoes off. I don't care how dirty the floors are.
Mhm.
Like they might be like shit on them, but take your shoes off. Shows respect, sets the tone that hey, I'm gonna respect your house no matter what from the beginning.
Yeah, and we always get clients that are like, "Oh no, you don't have to take them off." We still do it,
Yeah.
and they still appreciate it. I still I
Always.
still think it's like a little test. Oh, you don't have to do it. Okay,
Yeah,
just
no.
keep it on. They're like,
A
"Oh
lot of
shit,
people
this guy
test
is
you.
actually keeping them on."
100%. Don't take your shoes off. Even if you like, if they tell you there's, and obviously if there's like demoed floors and stuff, you're not gonna take them off. But if they're like, oh, you don't take, be like, hey, no, I can't. My mom would kill me if I walked into your house with my dirty shoes.
And also the important thing about the laying the paper on the countertops and placing all tools there. Sometimes we work in houses that they have $80,000, $150,000 countertops, and they're very, very meticulous and particulate with them having stuff placed on them.
Yes. Also, people will pick up things subconsciously. That's another thing. So when your guys are well trained, and then the first thing they do is they cover the countertops. And again, it comes down to like you already sold the project, which you got the job, means they trusted you enough. But you still have to keep that trust so the customer doesn't turn to a pain in the ass customer. Meaning, like they're not gonna be looking over your shoulder, they're not gonna be snooping around. Like they just let you do your thing. That's why I think like those little things, those little gestures, they're very important to keep the trust going. And the customer like, oh yeah, I'm in good hands. Very important. Like you said with the paper on the countertops, like this piece of marble here, like I was sitting. If you put your drills and a drill bit falls or a
Scratch
cabinet,
it.
it'll scratch it. And then what you gonna do? You can't buff it out. You can't patch it. You can't touch it up. If it was me and you did that in my house, I'd be pissed. I wouldn't want a new stone. 100%.
Yep. And then the next step on that is we remove all the handles. And the reason we like to do that is when we remove the doors and we place them flat on the countertop, if you have the handle staying here and you're drilling,
Yeah.
the impact is going up and down, up and down. And then on another system, or we like to follow, is we remove our doors from left to right at the top, left to right at the bottom, and then same for the drawers last. That's how we keep everything in track.
So yeah, our guys are very well trained, and I've noticed that, and I'm very proud of that. Like a lot of times, we won't even have to mark like on the structure,
Mhm.
because we know where 1, 2, 3 is. Like you said, we always start from the left, and then we go on the bottom. We go bottom again. We start, and it's phenomenal. It helps us a lot keeping track of the doors, because I remember the first time we did a cabinet job, we didn't even like number it. It was like we're playing a guessing game.
It was 23 and 30 next to each other. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, right now, even if they take the labels off on the interior of the cabinet boxes, we'll still know where each one goes just
Correct.
because of that system. Also, if you have different colors, another way we like to differentiate those two colors is by the color of the tape. We have three different color tapes: white, blue, yellow. If there's a fourth color, there's orange. If there's a fifth color, we have purple. So that's a good way to separate them before you get them to the rack, so you don't there's no confusion. You're not painting a white door that's supposed to be black.
And yeah, they go in the vans in order, and then they go in order again on the rack. So every color, if there's different colors, it's gonna be on a different rack. That way the guys don't get confused.
And then this is usually a two-man job, is where we put here. So the removable doors in numerical order. One person is on the drill moving the bolt-on screws. The other person is holding the door. You don't know if that's a solid door. It's heavy. Even if you're one person and you're strong, it still might
So
drop
a
and
few times
chip
we'll
the
have to take
countertop.
doors by ourselves, but when it's our guys, we always have 2-man team. Like me and Carmelo will take a kitchen apart in like, what was that one time that we timed ourselves like 15 minutes?
Yeah,
So it's
14 and some seconds.
yeah, it's way faster when you have two guys helping each other, and one holding the door, one drilling, and then one taking the hinges off, than one guy doing each a door. Plus, it keeps things in order. You're moving in order. That's why I'm like, just two guys. It's a mass. It's a must. Like when you taking apart kitchens.
Yeah, and both of them have they have delegated responsibilities. The guy on the drill is taking care of the screws,
Mhm.
taking care of the hinges. The other guy's taking care of the labeling, making sure the handle is back there, all that stuff.
Also, imagine. I mean, you might be a strong guy, and then you can hold the door. But imagine if you drop that door.
Yeah,
What are you gonna do? It's gonna take you weeks to get in your door. So, and how would I know of that? We've done it. We've dropped drawers. We've broken them, and then we had to glue them,
not too
like,
proud of those, but
and do
yeah,
like some surgery style on them. We made it happen, but it was a headache. So that's why I'm like, hey, two guys per door. It moves faster, eliminates doors falling down and breaking, and it saves you a lot of headaches.
yeah, and especially the sound or the noise when the door drops it makes the customer feel like, oh, these guys doing demo right now. What is happening?
Yeah, I had one time a shaker style door drop on me, and then shaker styles, it's like a bunch of pieces, like the middle panel and then the sides of it, and then the thing just crumbled. I was like, oh my god, it was like completely different pieces. So yeah, two guys per door.
Okay, so remove the doors, the drawers, just like we said in our system, from left to right, top, bottom, then drawers. And then we place the items, like you said earlier, in the van by starting order. So one through whatever goes here. That's the top doors, then the bottom doors, and then the drawers. That way we ensure when they go back on the rack, we know which one goes where
Yeah, we put the doors like standing
at an angle.
on an angle, so and then we cover them with like a clean tarp, so you never know what's gonna go on the road. If the van moves, right, or you take a sharp turn, or you have to brake, the doors are not all over the place.
And then on the on-site cabinet process, here's what we got. So first of all, we sweep the entire kitchen, the edges. We want to make sure there's no, especially when there's pets on the house living there, our tape sticks to it properly and the edge block technology is activated. We like using frock tape. We want our lines always to be sharp. Removing any items from the countertop if the client hasn't done that the night before. We give the customer sometimes a little bit of homework to do. We like having a little bit of space in our boxes just so we can put our tape in plastic and also the countertops to be completely empty. And that's all they have to do. We're taping the edge of the countertops, even under the countertops, because you never know. You get those particular customers and they go under. If your tape is not completely straight and you've painted the countertop from underneath, you're going to be in trouble. Uh, Following along that, once the countertops are all set, we move on to the backsplash and then we move on to the boxes.
I like this one that we have here. Check for lights under the cabinet.
Oh, that's a big thing. Oh my
Ooh.
God.
How many times have we painted LED lights under the cabinets?
I've painted a few myself.
Oh my!
I think that's why I put it in caps. I
Yeah.
completely forgot about it right now too.
Yeah, guys, a lot of kitchens, especially the nicer ones, they'll have underlighting, and then a lot of times it'll be off. So, what we've done in the past we just shot right through the LED lights. And then once that primer hits those lights, you're done. It's toast. So we had I've done it twice myself, and I don't know how many times you've done it. And our guys too. That we had to replace LED lights completely. We had to bring out one of our electricians, and he had to replace the LED lights. Or we some of them were easy. We just like order a bunch of like Amazon and put them back on. But always check for underlight or like the little the circle ones.
Yeah, the ones that are like a button.
Yeah, the ones those two. Painted a few of
They'll
those.
just come off easily.
Yeah.
But when you're naturally painting or priming, your instinct is to just go like this. You're not
Yeah.
really
So
ducking.
always
So-
make sure for underlight. Always saves you a lot of money and headaches.
And then this is all just a quick synopsis. Our cabinet ebook goes also in depth on why we do everything and the order we do it in. But the next step on that is doing the edges where the kitchen frames are or the kitchen structure so you don't get any paint on your walls. We like using 12-inch paper and also layer plastic on top of it. Overspray is very, very, very big issue if you get it on the walls and they don't have the touch-up paint.
You're gonna have to repaint the walls.
Yep. Next, if there are any windows to be covered, that's rare. If there's a small kitchen, there might be a window. And following that, that's when we start sealing off all our boxes. Once we seal off all our boxes, our standard process of degreasing, sanding, wiping them down, and then priming, all of that follows that.
Yep. So that's pretty much our first phase. Then we have the finishing phase. So we'll run it through really quick into a pretty general. Like Karmelo said, he has his ebook out, but we first thing we degrease everything. A kitchen has to be clean. Like you have years of cooking, years of people touching it. No matter how good your primer is, if there is grease and if there's filth, it won't stick. So first, degrease and clean everything. Treat it like you're washing the dishes. That's how we treat the cabinet doors and the structure. We have the little sponges, the degreasers. We make it spotless. Then we scuff sand. Then we dust off the scuff sanding, and then we prime. Then we sand the primer. Then clean again. Then we start doing the bondo, sand the imperfections,
Spot prime the imperfections.
spot prime the imperfections, sand again, dust, clean, and then it's time for top coats. Very important.
And then a very common mistake that I usually see is people scuff sand before degreasing.
Oh,
So when the grease or oil's there, if you put some friction on it with a sandpaper or even your sander,
yeah, it's gonna turn into gunk.
yeah,
glue.
and then you have more work cut out for yourself.
Also, not only more work, but you're ripping through sandpaper.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've seen a few. So we'll get guys that they've been on the field and then they'll come start working with us, and then that's what they do. That's what they've been trained on. They don't degrease and they start sanding, and the next thing you know, there's sandpaper. They start throwing sandpaper out
Like crazy.
like crazy. I'm like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? You just used 20 pieces of sandpaper. He's like, oh man, this cabinet is so filthy. I'm like, did you clean the fucking cabinet? They're like, oh. I'm like, oh my god, fucking painters, bro. So yeah, it's gonna save you like one piece of sandpaper should do all the doors pretty much if they're clean, because you're not stripping them down. You're not going down bare wood. You're just scuff sanding them.
Exactly.
So yeah, very important. As Karmelo said, clean first, then sand.
And then the same process is followed offsite for our doors when we transport them to our shop. Just like you mentioned earlier, degrease and all those steps.
Yep. Are you gonna give your secret degreaser out?
No, that's a secret formula.
Okay.
People
Alright.
that get the ebook get the secret formula.
Okay. So that's how much the glass master is gonna give out. But
A water-based formula. There are no chemicals for any homeowners that are worried or any potential clients that you have.
yeah, but I'm gonna give this. So what you have to do is you have to soak the cabinet doors completely in the secret sauce. So you spray it on top of the cabinet doors, you let it soak in, and then you use the little things, the little sponges. What do you call them? Scotch pads or
Little sandy pads.
yeah, the little sanding pads. They have the sanding paper on the front and like the little padding on the back, and then you just treat them like you're washing the dishes. That's the best way to degrease a cabinet. Soak it in completely. Use the Scotch pad and then wipe it down, and then it's good to go.
But again, this is just a short guide. You can definitely go more in depth about the cabinet process because there's so many little steps
Oh yeah, it
get to
depends
that
on the
point.
finishing. Yeah, we would need 4 episodes to cover
cover all
yeah,
that.
to cover all that. Like materials because we use different materials, 2K polyurethanes, 1K products, acrylics, enamels. So that's why we'll keep it short for now.
Yeah,
But yeah, that's
kitchen layout plays a factor. Door bumpers, how to remove those, how to remove the adhesive of those, all that stuff. But this is a standard guide that you can show to your crews so they can follow it.
Yeah, it'll make you guaranteed. If you guys didn't have an SOP, and then send us a message, and then if you start implementing it, guys, and let us know if you actually saved you time and if it made you more efficient in your process. We'd love to know.
Yeah, we'd love to share that with everybody.
All right, let's move on to the next one. So that's for the cabinets.
Where do you want to go to next? Exterior, interior?
You can start with interiors.
Interiors. So interiors is a little bit longer.
All right.
Again, first step, it's common throughout all of them. Show up properly dressed.
Yep. Take your shoes off.
Exactly. If we have a project manager on site, we walk through the site with them and the customer to make sure the scope of work is understood by everybody. So what needs to be done is all laid out in that first meeting. And then we start off by always taking our shoes off before any paper is laid down. You always got to make sure when you're working inside.
Beating a dead horse. Take your friggin' shoes off, guys.
Exactly. And then we sweep the edges of the baseboard because that's where, all the dirt builds up from vacuuming or, if there's pet hair, et cetera, before we put our edge tape and our paper on top of it. Any furniture that needs to be moved, we also take care of that. If there's any heavy stuff, we help the customer stage them right in the middle usually or wherever there's space. And then after that, once everything is staged out, we lay out our builder's paper or red rosin paper, depending on the project. Every square inch gets covered. Once all the paper is laid out, we like laying our plastic and taping it over the furniture and to the paper. So that way it's airtight, no dust or from sanding, or if we're spraying the trim, no overspray is going on there, or even when you're painting walls, no wall specks from the roller go there. Some floor layouts don't allow an edge for a whole rosin paper to be rolled out and covered with this is extra.
It's okay, say it. Say it for the painters.
Covered without being more time consuming and wasting excess material. We put 12-inch paper on certain edges and awkward angles. So basically, if you have, let's say, about 3 inches worth of space that you don't want to put 11,000 pieces of tape, or if you don't want to roll a whole rosin paper out, we like putting our 12-inch paper and then tack it down to the red rosin.
Karmelo can attest to this. How many times I fired guys for that?
Oh, Michigan or down here?
Both.
Tens in Michigan, tens down here.
Guys, it's so clear. Like, we make it so clear. Do not use 1 million pieces of tape to cover floor space. Not because it's, obviously, tape is more expensive than paper, but when you have so many pieces of tape on, like, let's say, bare wood or tile, on wood, you're causing a risk of removing the varnish off, the stain, and then it can cause a lot of trouble because you're going to have to fix that. On tile, if it sticks too long on it, it's going to be a pain in the ass to remove it. But it looks so
unprofessional.
Like it looks like a friggin' 2-year-old did it. Like you have 4 square feet and then you have 20 pieces of tape. It doesn't look right. That's why we make it clear. It's that when you have like a square, like a small square, put paper, cut a piece of paper, and then tape it on the edges. That way it looks clean, it looks organized, it looks pretty, and you don't look like a fucking dumbass putting 1 million pieces of tape. Like it drives me crazy. And it's those guys that I fired, it's not like I told them one time and I fired them. I'm like, hey, we don't do it that way here. Put paper. Like, hey, okay. And then I turn my back or I'll be back. And then the next thing you know, they're done in 3 other spots. I'm like, bro, just get out of here, man. We're not communicating effectively.
One project comes to mind, what we did up in Michigan, 2,000 square feet house. They used about 28 rolls of blue frog tape. Cody, you remember that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, fucking Cody.
And then you go there, you're like, hold on, let me see how many feet or yards each roll of tape covers. And it's like the one tape covers 60 yards, one roll of tape.
78, I think it's the frog tape.
So you do the math and you're like, there's two football fields worth of tape here and not everything is covered yet. What the fuck are you guys doing with the tape?
Yeah.
That was
the golden days where we had no SOPs. So
Yeah.
it was not Cody's fault. It was my fault and Karmelo's fault. So it's never your guy's fault. It's always your fault as a business owner because you didn't set those standards.
Sometimes We also put it here. If there are any certain areas or sections of the house that don't get painted, we seal those areas up with a complete plastic wall or barrier. If you have zip walls or if you have your big 99-inch
Story
plastic.
time
Oh, let's go.
from last week too.
Oh, recent story.
Yeah.
What
So
is it?
why these SOPs saved us a lot of headaches. All right. So we were doing 11,000 square feet house, $20 million house. And the lady has expensive paintings everywhere. Every single place of the house. She's an art broker, whatever, art investor, expensive paintings. So she texts me. She's like, "Oh, I think you guys got paint on my painting." I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm about to go bankrupt trying to replace her painting." So we had videos. We always tape our prep work, always to make sure, like, hey, customer, look, everything was covered, sealed tight, so we don't have those issues. But like in this SOP that you have down here, seal off the areas that are not getting painted, it was clutch because that painting was in an area that we didn't paint and it was completely sealed off. So right there, I terminated the argument of blaming us because I'm like, hey, boom, look, the video, the area was sealed off. There is no freaking way my guys were in there because it was sealed off. We're not painting in there. And then probably was somebody else that painted her house because she had like a handyman or something. So that's why I think like the SOP saved a lot of back and forth. Like, oh, we didn't do it. It wasn't us. It was probably your other painter and blah, blah, blah. Because at the end of the day, it's always the painter's fault.
Yeah. It always looks bad when you're like, oh, it was already all there.
Yeah. So
So
that's why like
they're not going to trust you.
that SOP real life experience last week saved that back and forth with her. And then probably her like being pissed at us and asking us to replace a $200,000 painting.
Yeah, $200 painting, because we also mentioned it here. Dust overspray can get and find a way to get to anywhere.
Oh yeah. Woo.
All right. Next thing, once everything is covered up, all the furniture, all the papers laid out, outlets and switches are to be removed and placed carefully either in a bucket or box and also taped up. We like to tape up our sections so that way we know all the switches and outlets are for this bedroom specifically only, so we don't lose any. We had a few issues in the very beginning where we were losing outlets and we had to keep a few spare ones in our vans just to replace them. I don't know how they got lost, but
I also like how we have here carefully placed so we can avoid scratches because we've had some like most of the houses that we work are really nice and they have like even like expensive outlets. They don't have just the cheap ones. They have like metal ones or like powder coated, finished. And then a few times in the beginning again, we would just throw everything in one bucket with the screws and the outlets, and they were scratching. And then one time we had to replace very expensive outlets in one house. It was like a $600 bill for powder coated outlets. And it was the same too with door hinges. I remember one time when we did that job, and then we took all the hinges off and we threw them all in a bucket with the screws, and everything was fucked. It was like everything was scratched. We have to buy new door hinges. So
yeah, those little things matter. And the way we keep our screws right now is we tighten them on the screw holes where the outlets are. Or if there are hinges, we do the same thing and just tape over them, over the outlet and the screws. Next, if there are any blinds or curtains, we take those off and label them for each spot. There's exact measurements on some of them, so we don't want to mess them up trying to grunt or force them in a spot where they're
behind
not.
them too. Like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I've seen some people online when they post their friggin' job sites and then they paint behind the curtains or the blinds. I'm like, just take the friggin' thing off.
Yeah, how hard is it?
Or like a lot of people don't even take the outlets off. That's I'm like, what? They're sitting around and counting around outlets.
Or taping it.
Yeah, they're making
Okay.
oddly satisfying videos on Instagram.
And then once that's taken care of, because blinds are usually in front of a window, windows are to be masked out with flake-resistant plastic. I can't stress how important having flake-resistant plastic is, because once you remove that, especially if you're spraying and there's flakes throughout the floor, they're much, much harder to pick up than just investing those extra couple of dollars.
Yeah. Yeah, once plastic starts flaking, it's a pain in the ass to clean up. So,
And then sometimes windows they're not going to be to the exact length of your plastic, but you have to be very skilled with your knife so you're not cutting the aluminum frame of it.
oh yeah.
So you need to be taking your time with that. Door hardware, we usually take that off. It's really easy to take care of. You don't want to, again, put them in a bucket, throw them in there, scratch them up, tape them up, leave them in a separate area.
Don't be like us.
Yeah.
Learn from our mistakes.
Next on that, this is optional, but wallpaper removal usually starts at this process once everything is sealed up because wallpaper takes a lot of time. It's a time consuming activity based on the adhesive or the way it was installed. So you want to take care of that right now. We like to put some warm water inside a sprayer, soak the paper up, let it sit for a little bit, and we start scraping or peeling it off. Uh, because afterwards, a full skim coat has to follow it.
Yeah, most of the times you have to skim coat the walls when you remove wallpaper.
And then we use what's that primer called? The wallpaper primer.
I forgot.
It's the green bucket
RX something from
RX
Sherwin Williams.
606.
Yeah.
But that has to be taken care of almost immediately so it doesn't set you back. Patchwork gets taken care of on the trim, walls, ceilings, checking every ding, nick, notch, scratch, holes, or big drywall patches. Big drywall patches are the first thing that we take care of because they require more drying time, or if they require more taping or mesh tape. Then after that, we sweep off the baseboards with a dust brush before caulking everything to ensure no unwanted debris is covering the gap. Little to no chance for it to crack in the future. A wet rag, we use that to smooth the caulk line out at all times and with frequent damping of it, so that way they're also straight. After 35 minutes, because we like to use 1050 quick dry, we can start patching small patches on doors, baseboards, frames, and like holes and scratches and dinks. Drywall patches are sanded first before we do any painting because all the dust falls on your baseboards. And then after all your drywall sanding is all set, you sweep up the baseboards and all the areas, you vacuum them.
Oh, and you spot prime the drywall spots.
Yeah, spot prime them. Trim patches are done with Red Bondo. Needs to be spot primed twice with either Pro Block oil can. We like to do that. Red needs to be gone before we start applying any top coats.
Yeah, because we use the red Bondo, so that one it won't cover with 2 coats of paint, 100%. So we always make sure we make it white with the primer first before we paint.
And then after the trim is done, we start off by finishing the ceiling with 2 coats. And something originally when we had no SOPs, we would do the ceilings and then wait a day for the trim to get on it, which I don't see a reason why we were waiting for that, where you could be doing both at the same time. And then after we're finished with both the ceiling and the trim, we let a day for both of them to cure, and that way we can put our blue frog tape so it won't peel off the finish that we just put on the baseboards and the door frames.
Yep.
The ceiling cuts are done by hand. We don't like taping our ceilings and spraying them or taping them and cutting them. I feel like that's an extra added step, and it's so craftsmanship when you can freehand cut everything.
You missed one last wipe. That's a really good one that you have here.
One last wipe, vacuum around the baseboards, and check on the trim for any ceiling paint specs, and start applying 2 coats on everything.
I love the caps that you have here.
Turn off the AC when spraying. Check smoke
Huge.
detectors. Cover those up as well. Spray dust might make them go off. Strain the paint before running it through the sprayer, and use a 308 fine finish tip to limit overspray and contain as much dust on the site while giving a flawless finish. Check the trim after the first coat for any missed sanding spots or any spits/runs. Buff those out with a Festool and a 320 grit paper or above, and triple check trim again before we move on to taping and wall painting. Touch-ups always done with a sprayer.
Always. And then like Carmelo has here, and because he wrote those SOPs with capital letters, turn off AC when spraying. It's like check, like what do you call it? The
Exclamation marks.
yeah, he has like a million of those here for our guys to make sure they don't miss it. It's very important to turn the AC off when you're spraying, because if you have the air running, it's gonna circulate all the blowback, all the overspray, the dust around the house, and then it's gonna sit there. So even though once you're done painting, the dust that's gonna be sitting there, and then everything's uncovered, and the customer just keeps running the air, it's still gonna be blowing dust. So very important. Or cover the vents when you're spraying.
Yeah, we had a lot of times where we would put up our plastic barriers and there would be dust on the areas that, they're sealed off. And we're like, why is this happening? Vent above is still working. The dust circulates and goes through the other.
Yeah, because central heating and cooling circulates air throughout the house.
And again, like we mentioned earlier, a day has to go by before we can start taping our trims. Tape all the trims with blue frog tape. We like to run our hand through the tape, tack it down, and we also either run a wet rag or some flat white paint so it can activate the edge block technology, and we have those nice crisp, sharp, straight lines.
Yeah. Frog tape has an amazing the edge lock technology. So once it gets wet, it activates and releases, and then it seals. So there's you either do that with your first coat of paint and you get bleed throughs, or you do it with water or the trim color to activate it, and then you do your colors. It'll say that's how we get crisp lines. A lot of people like will comment on my videos like, "Oh, what's your secret?" Here's our secret, guys.
Not too crazy. And then we do 2 coats on every surface, or if there's more that need to be covered, if you're going from black to white, for example. And then we pulse sand between each coats if it's drywall.
If it's smooth drywall, everything is drywall, but if it's smooth,
And then we take the tape off as soon as it dries to avoid any peeling of the trim or any bleed throughs. And we check for any touch-ups on every printed surface, blue tape, light spots, yellow tape, patches, and imperfections. So that way, when I'm walking the site or you're walking the site or the project manager is walking the site and the guy that has to do the touch-ups, they know what to do. What needs to be done here or what to look for. Finish up the touch-ups and it's time for cleanup. Turning up from top to bottom, starting with any ceiling fan or light fixtures, smoke detectors, then onto windows, door hardware we start installing back, and electrical outlets. Floor paper to be removed first and furniture plastic last. Because if you remove the plastic and then there's still dust on the paper and you take the paper off, the dust is going to kick up and then it's going to go to the furniture and you have to clean those up. And then once that's done, we vacuum everything out and we're good to go. Any leftover...
Use mop if necessary too. Capital letters again from Karmelo. If we created the dust, our goal is to leave the house cleaner than we found it. So if you have to use a mop the friggin' floors. If you created the dust.
Yeah, you want to leave the place as is or in a better condition.
Yeah, we try to leave it in better condition.
Any leftover paint stays with the client, except for any primers, and then we have a final walkthrough to ensure everything that's been taken care of according to the agreed upon scope of work. Disposal of garbage bags is always taken care of by us. And then these are special occasions. If you run into any water damage, depending on how heavily soaked or how yellow the area is, it might need cutting out or replacing. If it's heavy water damage, it might have structurally compromised the house. That is something we're not able to take care of until the structural integrity of the house is back to standard. Then we can continue on to patching. You usually install a new drywall piece, mesh tape all the edges, apply 2 to 3 coats of mud, sand, and blend it in with its surroundings, and only use drywall-specific primers. No paint and primer in once. You can't prime it with super paint for some of you guys. Any caulk cracking, usually the case with that is that the paint has dried quicker than the caulk, so the layer under the paint starts pulling the coating, and that's what eventually leads to cracking. Any cracking spots need to be cut out and caulked again, fully dry, and then repainted. Blistering, sometimes when we're rolling a wall, you'll notice a few bubbles popping up. Usually they'll settle before drying and go back into place. When they don't, then the surface is either oil and we're going over it with latex or vice versa. Moisture or heat is not allowing for the paint to adhere to that properly. We check and make sure the temperature is optimal for paint drying, cut up blisters, sand smooth, do any patching if necessary, prime and re-roll. Roll slowly this time around if the blisters keep showing up and when cut out, they show bare stucco drywall, then it's most likely a moisture issue that has to do with house plumbing. If the surface was previously oil, then we have to go over it with an oil coating before applying our latex product.
That's it. That's our interior process, guys. Go copy it and make some money out there.
A little bit more lengthy than the cabinets.
Yeah, interiors are more intricate, more detail, especially if you're doing high-end homes, so you have to pay that attention of detail.
And lastly, exterior house painting.
Take your shoes off on the exteriors too.
No,
Just kidding.
You don't want to be walking on the grass with your socks on, with your dirty painter socks on. Again, first step is always the same one. Show up on site properly dressed. We like to pressure wash the whole house from top to bottom. We locate water sources and form a plan of attack. Telescoping wand, pressure washer gun, and surface cleaners are the tools we use for those. A 100-foot hose, gas can is always a necessity for a pressure washing day. You don't want to run out of gas while you're pressure washing the house.
Oh, you don't want to run out of line.
Yeah, that one too.
Like a 25-foot hose, and then you have to move it around. And make sure you have 100 feet at least.
Also use eco-friendly solutions to get rid of any algae as the paint won't adhere to it, or it will need to be washed off with bleach by hand. If the
Simple Green is good. Simple Green works great for us. Or TSP.
And then something we like to tell our guys is don't keep your gun or wand on flaking paint part for too long, as the water can get soaked in behind the underlayers and build up moisture, resulting in more failing paint areas.
Also, don't shoot it in the windows. Like, I've seen a lot of painters, they just keep the pressure washer right in the freaking windows. I'm like, guys, you're gonna freaking
A
mess up the
0 degree nozzle on the
fuck.
window. Have a walk through the job site and go over the scope of work. And also, after you pressure wash, it's always a good idea, or you get a good idea of what needs to be changed if there's any rotted wood.
Yeah, we always inspect for rotted wood after we soak the house.
Yeah. And then if there's any flaking paint, we like to tarp over or put something over there where we'll be scraping it, because flaking paint, you have to scrape it off and prime it before you can paint it. Windows in any areas that are not supposed to be painted to be completely masked off. Pool systems, water sources, AC units. And the way we do AC units is until we get to that side of the house, we leave them open as is because they're working, especially in this Florida heat throughout the year.
Or the tankless
Water heaters.
water heaters, yes. They have exhaust, so make sure you're not covering the exhaust because they're gonna set the whole system off. And then the breaker will go out, and then the customer's like, "Oh, did you break my tankless water heater?" Like, "Oh shit, I might have."
And then when you get to that side where those are, that's when you cover them or tarp over them, or if it's an AC unit. So that's how you stay safe. Metal objects that are not in the scope of work to be painted, doorbells, light fixtures, cameras, cover porch floors and driveway until necessary. Trench the ground where there is landscaping that you can trench. You're not just going to go there and ruin their grass just so you could get closer to the foundation. If it's
like
something,
pebbles, like sand, decorative stones, stuff like that.
Yep. And also cover plants.
Oh, yeah.
That's a major thing.
You're not getting paid to paint the plants, guys.
Yeah.
I see overspraying so many people, job sites, just blowing the plants. Like, people care about their plants.
Yeah.
Our mom would go crazy if she had painters at her house and they were painting her plants.
They invest a lot of time and money to that. It's disrespectful for them to just ruin it.
Yeah.
Those, we usually go with tarps. If you're a little bit more patient and you want to put plastic over them, go ahead. Then after that, flaking paint, blistering paint to be scraped off with a 5-in-1 tool. Patch any big imperfections, texture those, and prime them before painting. The texture part is if you're working at a stucco house.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in this step is where you take care of all your rotted wood, if there's any siding that's
Stucco
loose,
repairs.
basically anything before the full prime coat. We also like to check for caulking gaps around the trim before our first prime coat. See what we can find. Do our elastomeric stucco patches as well.
And for hairline cracks.
Or hairline cracks. Those happen when the foundation settles, so that's pretty normal.
Yeah, it's normal.
And then that's when we do our first prime coat. Depending on the material of the house that you're working with, stucco, like we mentioned earlier, it's a rough surface, so you want to spray and back roll. That way it gets massaged or it penetrates the surface.
The texture surface.
If you're working in like a T11 siding or hardy board siding, you want to spray.
Or vinyl.
Yep, or vinyl. You just want to have a good...
Actually, no, T11, you have to back brush.
Yep. You want to spray and back brush, and then if you have a vinyl siding, you want to have a nice spray finish throughout. You need to keep it consistent, otherwise it will flash.
Or aluminum soffits.
And then when doing a 2-color house with the trim and the body being different, the roof needs to be either masked off or the use of shields needs to be applied. Or most of the time we use both, just to be safe.
Yeah, we always cover the roof.
That way the trim could get sprayed throughout. Exterior paint in Florida heat can get chunky, so the use of a strainer is always necessary. Also a splash of water, not a splash, not too much water, on the paint's bucket surface to keep it cool down, along with a wet rag over it. And also steer it frequently. We like to use duration, and that gets chunked up pretty fast.
Yeah, when it's hot out, it turns into a milkshake.
After the trim work has been finished, it's time to mask the soffits and the meeting coats of the body and the trim work. Stucco gets sprayed and back rolled to ensure good application and good coverage. That's for stucco. Any of the other materials, apply accordingly.
Stucco, T11, hardy, all those need to...
Same methods need to be followed with your spray rig. Keep that in mind. Oh, even on our exteriors, we like using our fine finish tips. Less overspray, better finish.
Better control.
Yeah, you don't want to be painting the neighbor's house for free.
Exactly.
Doors, garage doors, accent colors are always done last. We mask off the surroundings and spray. Masking to be teared off and clean up to ensue. Check for any touch-ups around both surfaces. Touch-ups can be done with either a mini roller or a brush. It's the exterior of a house. It's not the trim where you have to spray everything. Leftover paint to be left with the client. Final walkthrough and checking to make sure everything that was in the scope of work was done. So that's basically the standard operating procedure for an exterior project.
Pretty straightforward.
And then we have some exterior working conditions here. So number one, When working with an extension ladder on surfaces, the ladder has a chance to slide, such as concrete. A ground guy should always be present to prevent the ladder from sliding back.
Safety first when you're working on heights, guys. Always. I've been very on top of this from day one. Safety first. We're not out there to risk our lives falling down. I know we things need to get done, but make sure they get done for safe.
Yeah, and I have a story about that. Back up in Michigan, you remember Sean with the
Yeah.
ladder,
Oh,
extension ladder?
woo! Oh
We
my
always
god.
told them there always needs to be a ground guy. If you're gonna go up there, just tell
Yeah.
me, even tell me.
I
I'll
was
drop
watching
it.
that live. The ladder starts sliding, and the guy starts going down. And then Carmelo is like, I don't know, he was like going to grab something. He like grabs the ladder and like holds it. And I run down and I try to like keep him on to.
He probably pooped his
Yeah,
pants
I'm like,
by the looks of it.
fucking hell, bro. I'm like, we told you, you need a ground guy.
He's like, yeah, I thought I could get it.
Yeah.
It's only a little spot. No, a little
Yeah.
spot. Almost. Oh my
Could
god,
have
that would have
turned
been horrible.
ugly.
No overreaching. There are other ways or bigger ladders to tackle a higher peak or harder to reach spot. You don't
Safety
wanna be-
first.
you don't want to be dangling your leg over just to get that little piece. You could just move your ladder. The use of a pivot. So the pivot is what you use for any uneven surfaces, so you can bring your ladder to a straight angle.
Or a piece of a brick or planks or like a 2x4, something to your ladder always has to be level.
Pumps, we like to park them. Parking meaning when they're working in a shaded area, preferably to prevent any overheating.
Yep.
Store waste paint, solvent, and rags in covered containers, and we take care of the disposal of that. Do not dispose of paint or waste paint products into the storm drain system, a water body, to the ground, or the client's grass. I don't believe I have to say that, but
No.
don't do that.
I see guys, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna clean my brush and my rollers in the customer's backyard. The whole yard is fucking white.
Or if you're going blue, we have blue grass now. On our exterior days, if they're long, we like to set up shop at the end of the day so we don't have to unload our van if we have a lot of stuff to unload, or the ladders, the extension ladders, in an area where it won't be in the client's way to avoid trip hazards and leave anything in their car's way or exit.
There we
And then,
go.
and then lastly, no trash or remains from anything to be left on the floor or grass at the end of the day, keeping the job site tidy and neat. Disposal of garbage bags at the end of the job to be done in the shop's dumpster. We don't want any Slim Jim wraps around the grass.
Or
That's
cigarette butts.
That's
Don't be a dirty painter and leave your cigarette butts in the customer's house.
so yeah. This was a brief synopsis of our SOPs. Again, everything goes more into depth, but it will be a 4-hour episode, just like you said.
Oh, that'll be a
And the
game
reason we do
changer
those.
for a lot of painting companies out there, guaranteed. Because we didn't have these SOPs in the beginning when we started, and it transformed our business. It made us a better company. It made our branding better. Also, it made us a premier painter because we don't only sell a good paint job. We sell a customer experience. That's why I think having the SOPs will make you the whole experience seamless.
It portrays a good image of the company, and also they help you stay organized, efficient, productive.
Yeah.
And
So
it minimizes any risk, or there's no room for errors.
yeah, no. I mean, there's always going to be
There's room for errors, but
it
minimizes them.
Calculated risk. That's what it's gonna help keep under control with the SOPs. You're always gonna have fuck ups at jobs, but with the SOPs, you're gonna have less fuck ups, which sounds good. I think that's pretty much our SOPs. Victoria put down how SOPs have changed Olympian for the better. So yeah, definitely, like we said, definitely has changed our company for the best. It made us more efficient, reduced stress for me and Carmelo and our project managers because we know our projects are running smoothly. Also makes the crew leaders' life easier because they have a guide. They have like, this is my roadmap. This is what I need to follow. They're not trying to figure out things themselves. So we took out that thinking part for them, and then they just follow the guide. And then we have here cost control, material prices are met at the budget. So that also helps as well with SOPs. It reduces waste. Like we were saying earlier, we're not using a million pieces of tape to cover floors. That translates into more money. And then lastly, yeah, builds brand reputation and differentiates you from the competition. It's a big selling point to me. For me, when I go into an estimate and I'm selling a customer in my company, I'm like, hey, my guys are trained. They're not just Joe Schmo that I picked up from the street. they're trained. They go through training. They have SOPs. They're professionals. So obviously, I'm not gonna be the cheapest one because those guys get paid very well. But you're gonna not have to worry about having paint specks and overspray and chasing us because we got paint on your car or your cat.
Yeah, if you really want your painting business to scale, you really need SOPs. And it's a game changer for me when I'm selling because I portray an image of the company and also set the expectations right there and there.
Correct.
So when we come in, they know what's happening. I've already educated them on the process. Olympian is going to do this and this and this. Oh, here's them doing this, just like how you said.
So yeah, go another little sales trick. I know this was an episode about SOPs, but explain to the customers your SOPs because it's gonna show that you're on top of things and you're organized and you have a well-oiled machine running. And then the customer is gonna appreciate that, and also it's gonna justify if you're higher than the competition. Like we said, differentiate yourself from the competition. That's how you differentiate yourself from the competition by going there and presenting something different than the 10 other guys that went there to do the estimate.
Yeah. And another thing, I want to close this off, but I always like saying that all of our guys are either trained by you or me, and that's through the SOPs. And that's something the clients love.
And it's true. Always. We train the guys and we make sure they follow this. All right, guys, that wraps up this episode of the Dirty Painters podcast about the SOPs.
Be sure to follow us on our business on Instagram at Olympian Painting. Also, our personal pages, Olympian_Redion and Olympian_Karmelo for more content. Or feel free to reach out for any questions that you may have.
Yeah, please DM us if you start implementing these SOPs. We would love to know how they're changing and transforming your business. And if you like this episode, be sure to share it with a fellow painter or tradie. Until next time, this is Radion,
And I'm Carmelo.
signing off from the Dirty Painters podcast.